All right, welcome all, and thanks for joining us today for Getting Organized with Google, presented by Digital Services Manager Rich Loomis from SELS NJ. While attendees enter the Zoom room, please make sure your microphone is muted, and I'm going to launch a poll, which I hope you can take part of. And while you answer these questions, I'm going to go over some housekeeping rules. Like I said, today's session is getting recorded, and the slide deck will get shared with registered attendees after the event. This is the last virtual presentation NJALA is hosting this year. We will continue to host topical web sessions throughout 2023, and our in-person conference is returning in June. My name is Crystal Hooper. I'm the NJALA Treasurer and the moderator for today's event. Google is a topic that is going to generate many questions, so please utilize the raise your hand feature found at the bottom toolbar in your Zoom window, or type the questions in the chat box as you think of them. As we go through, I will interrupt Rich when needed so we can address your concerns while we're on that topic. There will also be time for questions at the end of this presentation. Okay, thank you for taking the poll. I'm going to end it now, and I'm going to turn the room, I'll share the results so you can all see it where we're at. And now I'm going to turn the room over to Rich, and we're going to hear about his technical knowledge and Google Insights. And thank you again, Rich, for joining us.
Thanks, Crystal. As Crystal mentioned, I'm Rich Loomis. I work over here at Somerset County Library System. And I'm currently in Bridgewater, New Jersey, and it's raining outside. And give you a little background on myself real quick. I've kind of been a Google evangelist since I found out about Google and Chromebooks and things like that. About, I guess it's now 11 years ago was when Chrome devices came out. So that's kind of where I started with things. Obviously, I had a Gmail account and all that fun stuff earlier on in my life, in my personal life. And then as time went on, here at Somerset, we moved on to using a lot of Google products for ease of use, security purposes, things like that. So let's go ahead and move on through the slide deck here. A little bit about us here at Somerset County Library System. We're 11 branches now. We have about 280 staff members. Our computer environment is a mix of stuff with a heavy focus on Chrome devices, specifically Chromebooks and Chrome boxes. And then since 2016, all of our staff have had access to what's called Google Workspace, which is the paid version of Google's kind of productivity environment, which you can kind of think of it in terms of what your Microsoft environment is with productivity tools like Microsoft Office and Outlook and things like that. Our service population is right around 190,000 folks. Our technology environment includes some stuff that's a little unique. We use Linux for our public access computers, which is open source software. Our staff computers are mainly Windows and Chrome. All of our staff have pretty much full access to Workspace, and Workspace includes things like Gmail, Google Drive, which includes all the stuff like Sheets, Google Docs, things like that, which are basically comparable to Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, things like that. Calendars is just like your Google Outlook or your Microsoft Outlook. Google Meet is just like Zoom, which you're in right now. And Sites allows you to make websites. Why do we do Chrome devices, and what are Chrome devices? Basically, Chrome devices are kind of a lightweight operating system that's somewhat based off of Linux. It also has a cloud storage capability. The nice thing about using this is it's very easy, and everyone that uses a Chrome device in our system has the same access at every Chrome device. And the other big bonus is all the security layers that are put in by Google. So we don't have to worry about managing all the security ourselves. We kind of push that over to the Google environment to manage both for our users and our devices. Google is able to make Chrome devices a lot less expensive by using multiple manufacturers, they create these agreements with manufacturers, and that's how the prices stay low. And the other thing that's really great about using a Google device is software prices stay low as well. Basically, it costs us a fraction of what it used to be in a Microsoft environment to maintain both our Google users and our Chrome devices. And if you can't find something, if you have problems doing something that you used to do in a Microsoft environment, there are also apps and extensions that are available for both no charge and a charge through the Chrome Web Store. Today's session is really going to be an overview of a lot of different things and kind of a generalized overview, just so everyone's aware. Why we did Chrome devices is they're extremely fast. I'm currently using a Chrome device, which is called a G3 Chrome box right now. They're very cost effective. They're extremely reliable. From my point of view, where I have to manage them, the management is extremely easy compared to, say, a Windows environment or a Mac environment. The battery life on a Chromebook can last between 8 and 12 hours now, and even longer on some other Chrome devices. And basically, the biggest benefit for our system is collaboration. Especially over the last 2 years, we noticed collaboration was a big deal, obviously with the pandemic, and we could virtually be in contact with one another relatively easily. This is just the definition of what Google Workspace is. And basically, it's a set of web-based productivity and collaboration applications that Google introduced. For those that have been interested in Google for a long time, you may have remembered G Suite. Basically, Workspace is now the paid version of G Suite, and G Suite kind of, that terminology went away a few years ago. It also within this application allows us those third-party applications that I just was talking about to kind of let other companies kind of come into the Google universe and make products that will work within the universe. And Google's big guarantee for us, which really makes it kind of a key for us, is 99.9% uptime for email. I will say that since we've been managing since 2016, which is a good number of years now, we have had no noticeable downtime.
I put my phone in my pocket and the picture went away.
Okay. So Google Workspace versus a free account, because I get this question quite a little bit from folks. Why do you pay for it when you can get things for free? Basically, Workspace has many, many, many more features and customizations available for your organization. A lot of organizations have moved to it, both Fortune 500 as well as nonprofits. It just allows for a lot more flexibility and collaboration amongst teams, and there's not all these hidden fees associated with it. Once you pay the one fee, that's kind of where you're at, unless you really want to add on things. Free accounts are really meant for individuals, so those places that are using the free accounts, you won't see all the features that I'm going to talk about today if you're using a free account. I'm really focusing on what Google Workspace has to offer. So today we're really doing a generalized overview of 3 things within the Google Workspace universe, which is Gmail, Calendar, and Drive. And this is really just a basic overview. And as Crystal said, I'm willing to be interrupted and talk about specific things. If they get very advanced, those will wait till the end. And also, just so you're aware, I'm pretty sure we're going to be offering some different classes as time goes on over the next year or so that dive into more specifics on individual products. So first thing we're going to talk a little bit about is Gmail. And this is where if I was in a room with you, I'd be asking you questions and surveys and all that kind of fun stuff. Because those of you that know me know that I like interacting with the audience and things like that. But today we're going to kind of keep it more traditional. So anyone that has any email account, whether it's Gmail or not, probably already know it's a difficult area to keep organized. And what I'm going to talk about is just some of the basic tools within the within Gmail that allow you to organize things and also talk just a little bit about the layout, because I know when I first came to this Gmail environment, and as time has went on, there's a lot of features within Gmail that you may not even be aware that are there, or maybe you already know it's there, but you don't necessarily use it or see a purpose in using it. So I'm going to just highlight a few things that I know I use on a pretty regular basis to kind of get you familiarized with a few things. And you might just go, oh, I knew about it, or maybe, oh, I didn't even know that was a possibility. Obviously, I'm going to go over layout and basic tools within Gmail, just so you're aware of where they live. And then labels is basically what they call categories, or you might think of them as folders. Snooze capability, which is one, I hate to say it, but I do tend to use it quite a little bit, just to remind me a day or two later after I get something to answer things. And we'll talk just a touch about apps. So using labels. Basically, labels in Gmail are really the categories that you can store things in and you can move things into. They allow, obviously, easy access and viewing for later on. One of the examples I always talk about that I use personally is creating a label called action needed. So I don't have to leave things directly in my inbox, but it's something that I need to act on later on, maybe in a day or two. So these are the instructions to use labels. I'm not going to go through everything here. One of the reasons why you get this slide deck is it'll actually talk about how to create labels and things like that, and also how to utilize them. I will then talk a little bit about shortcuts. What I'm going to do now is actually drag over my email, and you're going to, yes, see my personal work email. Shh, don't tell anyone. But I think it's easier to show you what's actually in my email account and how I've organized it to kind of go up here. So this is the lay of the land of the email. And currently you can see up here, I have 128 messages, and most of them have, as you can see, came in today. The left-hand side of the screen is really your navigation area. So we have things like mail and chat and spaces and meet, which we're going to cover all of these areas today, just in brief. Across the top, you can search, and over here on the right, this whole area is your typical Google interface within Workspace. So this follows you all over the place. So things like the apps, the Google Apps grid up on the top is where you can actually see every option that you have within the Google universe. And like I said, there's a lot there. That's why for the 40 or so, 50 minutes that we have today, I could never cover all of this stuff. But that just kind of shows you some of the things that are available within the Google Workspace paid version. Across the top, I just showed you this. And over on the right are connectors to things we're going to talk, a couple things we're going to talk about, like calendar and keep and tasks and contacts. And then if I had, this happens to be a GQs app, which is one of those, this is a paid app that we use as a system that allows us to do various functions. And then other apps and add-ons could be added down through this side. Now let's talk specifically about the Gmail interface, which is here. Obviously, we have Compose, and we have kind of the field area of your inbox. But as we go through these folders, actually, I should say labels, you could see various different things down through here. So you'll see all my labels are created down here. And these are my personal things that I use. So obviously I have older folders that I might store stuff in and things like that. And then some stuff you might be familiar with down at the bottom. Okay, so that's kind of a quick look at kind of the layout. I want to go back over here and just kind of talk about, oops, I'm sorry, I moved that too quick. I want to talk about a few of these things. Specifically, I want to talk about things that appear when you select an item in your inbox and things we should probably need to move around a little bit. So for example, I have an email here from someone about our staff appreciation morning videos, which tomorrow is our staff appreciation day here. And when I click on that, you'll notice this bar appears, and this bar is very important to you as a user. This bar kind of tells you what you can do with things. I can archive this email. So maybe I've already acted on this email and I want to throw it into an archive. Still maybe want to keep it, but it will just go into an archive folder so I don't have to see it in my inbox anymore. Obviously, you can report as spam, which I will say as an organization, we ask our staff to do this quite a bit because Google uses machine learning for reporting spam, which anytime that you report things into Google, the more that they see things, the better it works. So this is a really high priority area that when people do start reporting spam to me, I always say, please report it as spam, and then it moves it in there. And as our organization moves ahead, our spam reporting gets better, which means our protection gets better because Google uses the machine learning. Obviously, we have delete or the trash can. I have a little feature that's an app that's added on that lets me send emails as SMS because I am that guy that sometimes would rather have it on my phone or send things to other people that may be required to contact them out in the field. So I have a little add-on that lets things shoot right over to SMS, which is just texting. Obviously mark as read, things like that. And here's that snooze feature. This is pretty cool. And some people love it, some people hate it, some people use it a lot. I will say I use it quite a little bit. So when you click on snooze and you have an item check marked, it'll say later today, and you can pick dates and times and just make that little item snooze for a minute, right? That's in a lot of email clients that you might have used, but just so you know where it is. One that may or may not be there is add to tasks. I use Google Tasks for a lot of different things, so it'll remind me of things later on. A lot of these tools are just, if you like it, there's a lot of options here. So if I hit add to task right now, what you'll see is on the right-hand side of my page is my taskbar will appear, and then it'll say, okay, what do you want to do? Details and date and time that you want to add this thing to a task and be reminded for it later. That will then, obviously I have this on my phone as well, will also pop up a message on my phone to say, hey, Rich, remember to do this thing. And then we have,
Rich, can
yes.
you back up a second and expand a bit on the archive? Specifically, does this become the title of a file to find later?
Oh, okay. The archive actually becomes an archived email that you can search for later, and it shows up within, it doesn't really do anything more than just show up within your all mail search. So you can go into the all mail and find that by the tag archive. How's that? Okay.
Good, thank you.
Yeah, the archive area is one that Google is still working on as well. So they've been working on it for about 3 years now, I think, with adjusting it because everyone has different feedback on how archives should work. And I know that's been a process with them. I see it within the forums. So that was a great question. Okay, now what I want to talk about specifically is labels. Labels is really the way that you're going to organize things within your Google environment. And you'll notice on my left-hand side of the screen, I have labels down here because I have opened up all of this stuff that says more that you don't really see. These are kind of your standard areas, which is inbox and start and so on down the list. So underneath here is where you find labels, and labels are not exactly what you think. They're what are called categories in Google. And the reason why they're called categories is because you can have a label within your inbox, and you can have a label where it actually puts an email. I know that gets a little confusing, but I'll show you what I mean in just a moment. So to create a new label, it's as simple as create new label and nest it under whatever area within your inbox you want it to be. If you just say, just nest it here, it's going to just fall right under labels. It won't fall under another label. But you can nest as many labels together as you want. I think you can go out to 25 now. Don't quote me on that. I didn't look at it just before this session. And Google, one thing I will say is Google changes things quite often. So, but labels are really your friend. I'm not going to make a new one right now, but just believe me, it's as simple as that. And then what I'm going to really do is move a few things into a label so you can see what happens. you have move to, or you just have labels at the top. Move to means it's going to move to that label and only be available in that labels section over here on the left-hand side of the screen. If you just label a email, it will just label it and leave it sit within your inbox. So let me show you that first. That's not the one I use all the time. I like to move it in because I learned file management a long time ago. So I like to move it into the label area so it works more like a file management than just labeling something out here. But if you do label it, what happens is everything becomes searchable with that label search in this search in mail block at the very top. So to just add a label, it's as simple as select the item you want. I'm going to select a different item here. And I'm going to select this as just action needed, which is my action needed folder saying I need to do something. So when I do that, you'll notice right here, action needed just shows up here. That does not mean that I necessarily moved it over here into action needed, except for the fact that it's living now in both places. So you have the item in both places, so it stayed in your inbox. I'm not a fan of that, just not my thing. So what I end up doing is, instead of doing that, I actually select it and I hit move to 2022, and the item falls out of my inbox and now only lives over here. Labels can be a little confusing at first when you first learn this concept. And for the longest time, I was such a file management. I'll go back to old school filing. You think of a file cabinet, that file only lives in one location unless you made a copy of it, right? This is kind of how that is. You made a copy of it if you just use add label, or if you do move to label, that actually moves it. All right. Let's see. I'm just going to go back to my slide deck for 1 second to make sure that I'm covering what I want to here. All right, so we talked a lot about labels. Keyboard shortcuts. This is one that Google does really well. A lot of people like keyboard shortcuts. I use them quite a little bit. This is the instructions on how to turn shortcuts on for Google, specifically in Gmail. And these settings actually work throughout the Google universe, so you can actually follow these same steps. Once you do that, Gmail has a bunch of shortcuts. One of the shortcuts I use quite a bit is just hit, when you're within your Gmail, you can just hit L and that pops up that area so you can put the label on the individual email that you want. The other one I use a lot, obviously, is archive email, which we've talked quite a little bit about that already. So the keyboard shortcut is E. I think Crystal is putting a link in the chat about shortcuts, which this is the link to all the shortcuts available through the Google universe. All right, the next thing I want to talk about is chat. A lot of people think chat's just that within the Gmail. Chat is a very powerful tool that we use quite a bit in our system for various things. Chat's one of those things on the left-hand side of the screen. And over here on chat, you're going to see, let's see if my computer will act nicely today. When we click on chat, I'm specifically chatting with Crystal because she's the moderator here. It has a bunch of features on it. Some of the features that are less used that people don't realize are, obviously I can chat back and forth with Crystal, which you can see there's a history of chatting with her. But over here, there's a little plus sign. And because we use Google Drive, which is our file management product from Google, and we also use Google Calendar, we have these two abilities to either add a file directly to a chat that maybe you need to send over to someone quickly, or the ability to add a calendar invite and say, hey, let's meet real quick about something. So these are two underutilized features, even in the Google universe when you're reading about it. But these are things that are kind of newish to the Google universe, which are kind of nice to use. Some of the other features that we use that necessarily we're not going to talk about today, but is adding a video link using Google Meet, which is kind of like the Zoom of Google, we'll call it. Obviously, we have an upload file, and then adding little pictures and GIFs, and obviously emojis and changing font styles, which I think if you've done some texting and things like that, you're probably pretty familiar with. All right. And bear with me when I drag that over to the other window again so I can actually see this. Within Google Works, within Gmail, we also have a thing that is utilized quite a bit here, which is called Spaces. Spaces is where groups of individuals throughout our system can get together and talk about things right here. So we have things like tech team and digital services and things like that. And as we go into one of these rooms, the nice thing is you can chat. Really, some of the cool parts of this are file uploads. So if we're talking about something, we can also look at the files, and I can add tasks to individual team members within this environment. So my team here at Somerset County Library System consists of 4 members in the digital services team. So I can add tasks like, hey, can you go to the Bound Brook Library and fix a public access terminal, that type of thing. And they become checkmark tasks. So that's a very useful little tool for collaboration, because we do have 11 locations that we move around, and a lot of times my staff are moving around through those 11 locations. So this is a quick way to get in contact with them and move tasks around. All right. Like I said, we won't talk a lot about using Google Meet, because if I were to bring it up right now, we'd get that nice microphone feedback because you're using 2 different services on at the same time. So basically, it lives on the left side of Gmail, and you have Meet. You can also, when you're within our environment, you can just go ahead. I'll move this back over real quick. So, whoops, I grabbed the wrong one. You didn't see that. We'll play Let's Pretend You Didn't See. That's something for down the road. Over here on the left is Google Meet. And if we were to click on that, you'd have the ability to open up a meeting and send the link to another person and say, hey, let's meet. And they would log on and they would do pretty much what we're doing right now, except you'd be talking back and forth with the person. There's a lot of features within Google Meet that are somewhat similar to the Zoom environment that you're currently in. Some of the newer features within Meet that have come available are things like enabling live captions. And then under the activities tab, there's a whole host of things you can do. Specifically, one of the ones that I was most excited about was creating breakout rooms within a larger meeting. So it's almost like having a virtual environment for a regular kind of conference meeting. Obviously, you can record meetings like we're doing for this meeting. You get transcripts, and there's an ability to do a whole bunch of collaboration using a whiteboarding product called Jamboard that is built. There's a lot of other stuff as well. This is just an example of some of the things that are available through Google Meet. I will say most any Google product that we look at today is available in most every other product that Google offers. And you'll be seeing a lot of overlap of that type of thing. So also one thing I didn't mention was they have polls as well, like you filled out at the beginning of this session, and a Q&A section as well. All right, Google Calendar. Google Calendar is one of those things that has so many features. I didn't really know which way to go with this. So I wanted to show some of the features that I know are most useful for me. So obviously you can import calendars from other calendars.
Hey, Rich, can you pause for a second?
Yep.
Because we got a good comment in the chat. Someone just wanted to mention the other killer Gmail feature is email scheduling.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, email scheduling is a great thing because you can actually schedule an email out to be sent at a later time, which is a feature now in things like Outlook as well. Which is kind of cool. Like I said, as time has went on, Google's added some of the stuff you're familiar with other products, but they've also created a lot of their own. Thank you, Crystal. Obviously you can create an event that's either public or private, which means public to the rest of the staff that are in your organization or private to yourself. You can add virtual meeting links, which is using either Zoom or Meet or any other product. Obviously, the integration with Google Meet is right there in front of us. You can view other people's calendars within the system. You can color code calendars. You can organize all your most viewed calendars, which I do quite a little bit because, like I said, I have a team of 4 folks. You can schedule meetings with groups and add documents and all that kind of stuff. I schedule a lot of meetings, so scheduling a meeting is a big deal for me. And there's a couple of different ways you can do it. Obviously, you can make a phone call, you can message someone and kind of try to figure out a time. But one of the things I do quite a little bit is either what's called suggested times or find a time. So suggest a time allows you to add everyone to the event who should attend, and then select the suggested times links below the guest names over on the right and blah, blah, blah. And it'll suggest a bunch of times for you. Or you can use what's called find a time, and then that's where you can kind of see everyone's calendar at once. I'm going to kind of show you that here in just a moment once I bring over my calendar.
And Rich, as you open that, we have another question. Is there a way to make your default meeting length longer than 2 hours?
Actually, with the newest version of Google Meet, it allows you to make it any amount of time that you want. As far as I know, I would have to totally double check that because Google has been adding new features to Workspace, and it depends on the level that your organization has purchased from Google on what the actual time limit is. So I know ours is available to be longer. I would have to double check. It's kind of an organic product that grows and changes all the time. So for me to answer that correctly, I'd have to do research on that. All right. So I'm going to, let's see, we are going to do try to schedule a meeting with Crystal and another person on my team. I'm not going to, this is what the box looks like. Obviously, you have things like focus time and whatever, and time and date, find a time and whatever. I always go right to more options because usually I'm adding people and things like that, and I like to see all the options. So right here on this, you get add a title. I'm just going to call it test because I'm not that original sometimes. So right here we have event details, find a time, and a lot of the stuff you're familiar with if you've used a calendar before. Some stuff that you might not be familiar with are things like the busy and the default visibility, whether you want it to be public or private. If you don't choose anything, it's immediately public. Some other things down here is little areas to add attachments and create meeting notes and all that fun stuff. And off to the right, we have guests and rooms, and then some guest permissions. Okay, now, I'm not going through everything, but I want to show specifically find a time. To do find a time or suggest a time, you have to actually have some people available to do that. Obviously, if you're just having a meeting by yourself, there's no point, right? So if we wanted to, I just added 2 folks in my team and I need to have a meeting with them on November 29th, which I don't want to do that. Let's do that a day or 2 ahead. We'll do it tomorrow. That way it actually works. And do find a time. So when I click find a time, what automatically happens within calendar is my calendar shows up first, and then the people that I chose show up second and third. So I can see right now, if I wanted to have that meeting on Thursday at 10, it's not really going to work for us. So I would have to keep moving around until I found a time that worked. Okay. Find a time is okay. I don't usually use it that much. I usually like to use suggest a time because I don't really want to look at the person's calendar. If I wanted to do that, I would just send an email out and say, hey, when can you meet? So I use suggest a time. And what suggest a time does is it suggests times that are available for all of us to meet within the next day or so of that time frame, like if I chose that. And so now it's saying, oh, nope, there's nothing available on December 1st for you to meet, but look at all these times on December 2nd. So that's suggest a time. You can imagine that having a meeting with 14 or 15 people, this would be pretty useful. Obviously, with 2 or 3, it's a little kind of a simple example, but it's very useful to use suggest a time. I'm going to discard that because I don't need to have a meeting with them right now. And I'm going to go back to my slides. Adding meeting attachments. This one is one that in the beginning I didn't use a lot. And this is very, very important in my opinion, because how many times do you go to a meeting and say, hey, refer to this document? Happens to me all the time. And then I'm scrambling through my email, trying to find it. Even though I keep my email relatively organized, still you have to find it, right? So adding attachments, especially like an agenda, or maybe it's a document, a spreadsheet you're working on or whatever, is really a big key. And that adds it right into the calendar for you. So right here underneath in the description box, you have the ability to add attachments. And the beauty of this adding attachments is you can do a lot of different things. Like obviously you see my presentation right here. So I could pick my most recent things. I can upload a file. I can go out to my drive and use a lot of my features out there. So I have a lot of abilities to move things around and attach really quickly. But that attachment feature is very, very useful within this environment, especially for folks that tend to be busy and don't always remember to bring their documents. And then you have to scramble and send the link over to them. Okay, I'm going to start moving a little faster now. So this tells you how to add attachments. And now we're going to talk a little bit about Google Drive. Drive's really that full productivity suite that you're used to if you're used to a Microsoft environment. So it has things like docs and sheets and slides, which is for presentations and ways to make forms and drawings and maps and making a website. And then some stuff we won't really cover much today, obviously, is AppScript, which allows you to do some basic programming, and Jamboard, which is kind of a whiteboarding area that you can do a lot of collaboration with. So a lot of stuff that you're probably already familiar with, but this all lives within the work environment. And the beauty of it all is it allows collaboration. And I'm really going to talk more about file management. You're probably seeing a little bit of a trend here. It's about getting organized, not just talking about Google in general. So getting organized in Google Drive, I know when it first came out, a lot of folks were still saving everything locally. And really, the whole idea is it's cloud-based, but it's super easy. Yes, this is a quote by me. It's easy for the files in your Google Drive to get out of hand really quick, from files shared with you to those you create yourself. It's a disaster in the making. We all get disorganized at some point, and if you don't, I applaud you, because I know you get stuff thrown at you from every different direction, and stuff in Google is the same way. You get files shared with you and you need to keep track of them. So I'm going to talk about a couple of things. I'm not going to necessarily show them all because I know I'm getting a little close on time, right, Crystal? Yes.
You have 20 minutes.
Oh, okay. So I still have some time. I just want to make sure that we have to leave enough time for questions and things like that. Google has, in Google Drive, we have a lot of different features that you can use. So I'm going to go through these features, and I'm going to go into my Google Drive to show you how I use them. So we have starred folders, which is a way to kind of emphasize a specific folder in Google Drive, and it minimizes the number of clicks to get to the files that you have in there. It's very, very useful for me, especially from mobile device. That's where I use it a lot, so I can get to things quickly. For example, we have a lot of things that we use to update computers out in the field, we'll say, like out in our branches. And so we use starred folders within that area to allow us to get to, maybe it's a print driver that we use specifically for, it's an upload for our ILS that we have to do on a Windows machine because we use a client-side ILS product, that type of thing. So we use starred folders because we can star our folders both within the universe of Google, of our own Google environment, but also within, you can pull things in from our system folders that we all share and star them within your own environment to make them easier for you to find, because not everything in the system folders are really for all of us to use all the time. Priority tab. This is one that really is, you don't even have to think about using it. It already exists within your Google environment. And priority tab, basically, Google determines the priority of a file for you, and there's a tab that's already built within your Google Drive, and it uses machine learning, and it starts understanding how much you access that, how many times you use that file or maybe that folder, and it starts to make that folder more prevalent within this tab. You don't even have to think about that happening. It happens on its own. It uses kind of Google's learning, machine learning products to make that happen. Kind of a pretty cool little feature that I used to always use recent as my thing, because that's the one that a lot of people, I think, use in the beginning, because recent's right there. Oh, I recently accessed that file or this file, so it remembers it. But priority tab, maybe it's something you access a lot, but you don't always access it every day, but it's something that you do use a lot. For example, with me, I use a lot of print drivers, so things like that fly to the top of my priority tab. Within Priority tab, there's a place called Workspaces, which allows you to work with other people on your team or teams throughout your system or your library, to kind of manage projects specifically with file management in mind. So it allows you to drop files in, add files that you're working on. A lot of people use it as a to-do list area. You can add, I think, yeah, here it is, up to 25 workspaces per area. So that's kind of a cool little feature too. And then this one is so simple, but I regret to say I don't use it as much as I should, but changing colors of the folders just so you have visual cues for yourself. Pretty much this talks about how to do that. And we're going to go back one slide, because now I'm actually going to talk just a little bit about how that stuff looks within the Drive area. So I'm first going to talk about Priority tab, so you can see that, because that's starting right at the very top. But this is your Drive area. So you can think of this as your cloud storage hard drive, we'll say. It's not local. This is all based off the cloud. So I have a lot of stuff going on here. You'll notice the Google environment looks the same across the top, except it says Drive now instead of Gmail. Down below, you have things that say New, which has new folder and file upload and all the fun stuff. And then you can open new types of documents, just like in your Microsoft environments. Over here, we have Priority tab, which you heard me talk about. We have what's called My Drive, which is all the stuff that I do that's stored locally for me. And you'll notice I have some color-coded folders and things like that. And then we have shared drives, which this is all the stuff shared throughout the Somerset County Library System. As you can see, there's a lot of things there. Shared with me, these are things other people shared with me specifically. Recent, which is the tab a lot of folks use, and even in Microsoft, your most recent files always show up at the top of the list. That's what that is. Starred, which is the one I was talking about before, where you want to star a file so you can get easy access to it later. And that's kind of, I don't have a lot of starred ones. I don't use that per se. It's not my favorite feature, but a lot of people like that. And then obviously your trash can. And things in your trash stay about 30 days. So, okay, so we're going to go up to Priority tab just to show you what happens up here. Within Priority tab, you have, these are obviously the priorities that I have that have been most recent on my list. So you're seeing things like, obviously, this presentation or a presentation for NJLA's conference, things like that. This is all based off of machine learning. So as you really start accessing things, you'll get a page or so of things you access most frequently. Down at the bottom is where that area called Workspaces is. Don't get it confused with the Workspaces that I talked about previously. This is Workspaces within this area of Google Drive. So down here, you have the ability to create new workspaces. Obviously, you can title it whatever you want. Once you create one, like I have this, you can view the workspace and you can add things to it. Okay, so let's go back. I'm going to close that right out. Colored folders is as simple as you right click on the file or folder you want, choose a color, and it makes it that color. Now, in terms of kind of the overview of Google and getting organized with things, those are the topics I had. I just wanted to show a few projects that we've worked on here at Somerset County Library System that use the Google universe. One of the things for us to get organized as an organization, we have so many files and policies and procedures like a lot of libraries, but we also have a lot of departments, committees within our organization, and just information we need access to at a moment's notice, right? So what you're seeing right now is what is called a Google site, and this is specifically for staff. So it's basically our intranet, and it's organized, pulling files and folders from that Google universe, as well as other things as well. So for example, right here, you're looking at our technology page that staff have access to. And it says update your info and all this kind of stuff, whatever you need at the top. And then it says ask the tech team a question. We use a ticketing system throughout our system so we can follow up on projects and products and problems and things like that. And it's called Help Desk. Obviously, it doesn't have to be real original. Help Desk is what a lot of people call it. So this thing has things in here about how to submit a help desk ticket to us, the tech team. And when a person clicks on this, they have access to it. But over here, like if you had a need to contact HR, the marketing department, this tells you how to contact them and then has a lot of information about what's going on. This is basically a website that's just part of your Google Workspace that lets you make it specifically available to the users in your environment. Another beauty of using the Google environment is there's a lot of those things called APIs, which allows you to interconnect with other tools. One of the tools we use is what's called Spiceworks, which is an open source tool. This open source tool kind of manages our ticketing system and automatically applies ticketing and things like that. It's a free tool, obviously it's open source. But we wanted to customize it a little bit. So what we did was we incorporated it with a Google form to make it more customizable, and kind of as you fill out this form, it changes the question depending on the problem that you're having or maybe the location you're in. But it integrates very nicely together. And then what we see on the back end, we can get an email notification. We can send email notifications out to the staff member and all that kind of fun stuff. But we can also track things within our inventory environment as well. So it's kind of a mix together of information that allows you some customization. And one of the last things I'm going to talk about is digital signs and reusing old Chrome boxes. This is talking a little bit about equipment, but it's also talking about utilizing Google Slides, which is what you're viewing right now. My presentation is on a Google Slide, which some people call it presentation software. You can think of it as the Microsoft PowerPoint of Google, if that's easier for you. But Google Slides, because it is all stored online, we make digital signs using Google Slides and using some of the features of Google Slides to make our digital signs, and then they show up on screens throughout our libraries specific to the branches or the departments they live in. The other interesting thing that we did with this is we've reutilized equipment that we would have normally had to get rid of after the life of the equipment, which this is an old school original for those that are kind of familiar with the Google environment. These are what are called G1 Chrome boxes, which we put into place probably back in about 2015 or 2014, but they've exceeded their life expectancy, and we wanted to reuse the equipment because I'm a big advocate of reusing equipment. We reutilize this equipment, put it in what's called kiosk mode, and then take the link that Google Slides presentation gives us, put it in a browser window, and voila, we automatically make it advance the slides, and you have a digital sign pretty simply. So that's just a way that you can kind of reuse some of the equipment. And hopefully you're seeing that there's a lot of interconnectivity and collaboration within the Google environment, but there's also a lot of ability to do things with Google equipment, we'll call it, or Chrome devices that pretty much kind of takes over some of those environments that you're probably already working. And now you're working within one environment. Plus, you're saving huge amounts of money by not having so many separate things to do what's all available in one environment. So I think I'm done. Wow.
Yeah, thank
I
you,
think
Rich. You got through so much content. So I want to open up the time for our attendees. So if you'd like to type your question in the chat, or again, you can use that raise your hand feature and I can call on you. And we do have a few comments and questions that came in. So one of them
okay.
is, as public libraries, we don't always qualify for free workspace for nonprofits. We do not have a credit card per se. How do you pay for Google Workspace using a purchase order voucher? And Doug very kindly offered a solution, which was Sweetbriar, but do you have any other recommendations?
Let me, I stopped sharing my screen, correct? Cool. All right. Sorry about that. We've utilized, yeah, Doug knew about Sweetbriar. I knew that one because I think I told you about that one, right? And then Cumulus Global is another company that we partnered with for equipment. But a lot of the Google partners that are out there are able to work through a lot of ways of purchasing that they're already familiar with us. There are things, obviously, it's unique to New Jersey purchasing, and we struggled through a lot of that. So if you run into problems, I have different ways that you can do that depending on the way that your organization purchases. Obviously, we're a county library system, so our purchasing can be a little bit different than some of the other folks. And sometimes you have to get unique, if that makes sense, with the way you purchase. And we've been pretty fortunate because our library commission is very good and able to handle a lot of these types of questions. So.
Thank you. And we also had someone who shared a really useful tip. So thank you, Joanne. She says when conducting training workshops, she often creates them in PowerPoint and then backs them up in Google Slides. And this has saved her lots of times, like at the NJLA conference, when the provided laptop would not open the PowerPoint. And I know that has happened to me as well. So very good tip, Joanne.
Yeah, that's one that I will say that I kind of ripped off the Band-Aid a long time ago and just do Google Slides, but I always back it up with a PDF. So.
And we have another question about labels. Do you have to manually move emails into labeled folders, or is there a filter that will automatically move your emails based on the label you create?
You are correct. Yes, there is a filter. And like I said, I didn't know where to cut the line on Gmail because you could talk about Gmail for about 2 hours and still not cover everything that's available within the Gmail universe. But filtering is one of those things that I do quite a little bit of. As you probably noticed, I had a bunch of folders over on the left-hand side of the page, and I didn't even open up all my folders because I have things for like social media and all that kind of fun stuff too. All that stuff filters automatically out of my inbox, so I don't have to see it. But I still come in after a weekend and maybe have 100 or 150 emails within my inbox that don't filter out anyway, because let's face it, it seems like email has become the land of junk mail a lot of times for us.
And I don't see any other new questions posted in the chat, but we do have some comments saying, great, thank you for the good presentation and for not assuming that everybody knew everything coming in. So very good.
Yeah, like I said, this was really meant to be more of an overview. You could go almost anywhere with the Google universe. This is really to show some of the stuff about Workspace and some of the uniqueness that comes within Workspace versus a kind of a public account or a free account from Google. And also just to make you aware that I know that jumping from a familiar computer environment, and I use Microsoft because that's what a lot of folks are on, and jumping into Google does kind of it's an unknown at first, right? We did it a long time ago, and it was an unknown for us as well. And our staff pretty much after some trainings and things like that, I think now a lot of them, not that I want to speak for them, would say, wow, I don't know how I did this and couldn't communicate as well with folks. Because one of the biggest problems for us is, obviously we're in central New Jersey, and getting to our branches sometimes, I mean, our farthest away branch could take 45 minutes to get to, and to have meetings. I mean, and also during pandemic, the collaborative tools within the Google environment kept us all connected, which we would have never had that much connectivity before. And some of the stuff I didn't show, within every Google product, you go into Docs or whatever, you can actually start commenting and messaging within that document, and that with that person or those people that are on that document. I didn't really talk a lot about that, but the collaboration of the Google environment is really what makes it so seamless to work together. And you're not adding a bunch of add-ins all the time to make this work or that work, or using things like virtual meeting products to try to get things to work, because the virtual meeting product is right there.
That's very true. Thank you. There is some similar comments and questions, people asking when our SQL presentations are going to be, and I'm going to answer this one for you. So as NJALA's treasurer and an executive committee member, I've gotten the feedback and heard the need for courses like this. And we thought that we were a good avenue to kind of facilitate those needs. So I work for Rich at Somerset County Library System, and he's going to help me come up with a whole slew of presentations that I will do through NJALA, and we're going to host them virtually once a month. So most of the time I will probably be leading those, but if it's a specific topic you all are interested in, which I'm going to send you a feedback survey and an email later today, you can let us know what you really want to know, and then we will present it from the person who knows that best. All right, I'm glad you're excited about that. I'm excited about it. All right, any other questions? And I'm going to actually turn off the recording.